I had a little time over Thanksgiving break and I decided why not teach myself how to use Fusion 360 a little bit better. So I designed up my own personal clapper. Check this guy out. I think it looks pretty decent. It's got my name on top there. You can see that because, and just in case I forget who I am, I don't know. I thought it was a neat little touch, so I added it and 3D printed it and assembled with care. And here it is, my own personal clap sinker. Yeah. Honestly, I'm a little obsessed with this thing. I have no idea why. One of the cool features, because we're going there, is that this has opposing magnets to create a spring force that will deliver the clapper arm down to the base so that it creates the same exact clap every single time. So I hope you guys are ready for this one because this is the best clap sync ever. That was crisp. Anyhow, welcome back, my fellow duplicates, to Oxygen Not Included. This is the Megabase Challenge, and I've done a little bit of work over the weekend because I wanted to play the game for once without actually talking about exactly what I'm doing. So I expanded down here a little bit on the base because I want to improve the situation with the amount of duplicates I have, also bring in some more duplicates, which I kind of already mentioned a little bit before that. And the other thing is that I also want to kind of expand and move people out of this crowded space up here into a larger space where they have a personal shower and they also have a sink as opposed to the little wash basin, which of course I could already swap that out, but they wouldn't have their own personal shower. The other thing I've also worked on here is started to look at plastic ladders. I'd like to eventually put in a fireman's pole, and so that you can actually go down and, get away from a lot of the travel time that is being consumed by these ladders. So I'm looking at that from a more logistical standpoint of maybe being able to look at reports and see just how much travel time there is in a single day right here. And maybe we'll optimize this over the next couple of episodes. However, the real main focus is down here in what is now a polluted water power plant. And all I've done is added 2 more natural gas generators because there's nothing really to that. So I added a couple natural gas generators, but the thing is I want to add over here is a battery bank that's going to be controlled using one of those battery indicator sensors so that we can have a auxiliary power down here that everything will run off of. However, if the main battery bank goes empty, then all of these generators will kick back on and refill those batteries, to their maximum levels, and then it'll turn off. That way we don't waste the amount of polluted water we have. We can convert it into natural gas and store that natural gas until we actually need to use the power. So we're not being wasteful. We're actually going to save the Oxygen Not Included environment by storing natural gas and not wasting power, basically having this natural gas generator running with nowhere for it to pump energy. So that also connects back to a couple of the other episodes that I made here earlier, where I made a little sensor that indicates whether or not, we have power inside of a battery, and there was a couple of different options that we explored there. And there was also one that was not explored, which was using a little hamster wheel or whatever, and you can press on a button to get a level off of that. And the other thing was from a previous episode where we explored draining one battery ahead of another battery by using a power transformer. So really what the Megabase Challenge is all about, since it's been a while and not everybody seems to really necessarily remember exactly what the Megabase Challenge was about, and maybe even myself, is that the Megabase Challenge is about going over all of the different experiments that we've tested out thus far and trying to incorporate it into one base. It's not about being efficient or playing the game in the most practical manner at all. It's about trying to do all the crazy experiments but in one single base. That is what the Megabase Challenge is, just as a reminder, and that's what I'm going to try to do here because I've covered those in previous episodes. So therefore, they must make their way into this base. Yes. Oh, and if you haven't noticed already, I got a new little webcam thing here. Now, it is not something that you would ever recognize because I believe it's actually a security camera. Some crazy thing that doesn't even come with a case or anything. It's literally just a lens and a sensor. I'm exploring some other options for better webcams or better face cams without actually going very, very expensive and linking in an actual camera. So this is kind of a cheap alternative that might actually be better and more affordable I'm testing it out. We might see a little bit more about that in the future, but let's go ahead and plan this out over here because this is where my battery banks are going to be. And on top of that, I need to have that battery sensor indicating whether or not we're going to have power inside of our battery bank. So let's hook it up and get it going. One thing I do need is I need a lot more iron ore. So I'm going to employ somebody here just to dig. Well, it looks like I already got Bubbles here. They're just gonna dig. How about Frank and Meep just dig as well? Speed this game up. I don't got time to wait around for everything. Yeah, there we go. Get moving. I was so tired in the last video, and then I finally realized the reason I was so tired is because I was like within caffeine withdrawal is where I'm trying to go. I'm so jacked up on caffeine now that I can't even talk. Woo! That's what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and enclose these batteries inside of a liquid cooling system. Why? Because liquid cooling is awesome. I mean, people don't liquid cool their computers because it's practical. They liquid cool their computers because it's cool. And I gotta figure out what webcam I'm looking at. You're over here. I should be in 60 frames per second, by the way. So I'm all like smooth and fast motion. Told you I'm jacked up on caffeine. What was I doing? Another thing I have going on here is this ladder. So this will be a new way to access this area. Which means if we're going to put a fire pole, you want to have a ladder right next to it. I've heard you want to build them on the outside so that they don't go to the fire pole first. But they do take it to come down. So this carbon skimmer is like not really in the best spot. So let's go ahead and move it. Deconstruct the building, yes. And the liquid pipes, you know it. Be gone. All right, so here's another thing I've been working on. I've been pumping more hydrogen into this space over here. So up here at the top, in kind of the high pressure zone, because these things pump upward, it creates a high pressure, therefore it flows to the right, down, and back to the low pressure. So it actually does flow around. You can see it flow ever so slowly as you watch it. But up here at the top, it is 4.5 kilograms, and down here on the bottom, it's around 2.5 kilograms. So there's a lot more hydrogen in this area now. And as we can see, well, it's quite a bit cooler. So having extra hydrogen in this space here has really made a big difference. And I don't plan to stop, just yet. I might as well keep it going up and up for now. The one thing I should do, though, is get rid of this, like, chlorine and stuff that's down here. There's a couple of areas that might be slowing the actual flow of this hydrogen in its loop because it has to move through one tile as opposed to 2 tiles. Hydrogen is flowing out, and everything else is it all went to the wrong side. Okay, let's see if I can get all of that out of there real quick. A little bit of chlorine. Now I have hydrogen, carbon dioxide. Gosh, I can't get it to be clear. All right, I'll just destroy all of them. How about that? Okay, so that should settle out to where I only have hydrogen inside of here. Hopefully we can rebuild it here pretty soon. You guys don't get to go to sleep. I'm gonna hit the red alert. That's right, you don't get to go to sleep until this is built. Hopefully they don't run out of oxygen either. Everybody's waiting on you, Harold. All right, there we go. Nothing but hydrogen. And we still have 4 kilograms up there at the top. So that wasn't bad at all. And we didn't cool the base at all. It's still very hot. All right, so time to build a nice plastic ladder right up here. This should hopefully help the travel time. So if we take a look at the reports and we look at travel time, right now I'm at 353 seconds. Let's see if it says anything about ladders or anything like that. No, not really. The one thing I wish you could do, and hopefully they will add this in the next update or some update after that, is actually to paint over the ladders, kind of like you can do with the tiles. Because right now I can't just convert this to plastic, which would be really, really handy. I actually have to deconstruct it and then build plastic in its place, which is kind of, cumbersome. So let's see if we can do the fire pole here. And drop them down. Alright, so let's see how they path around now. Now that they have the fire pole available, they go up the plastic. But do they come down the fire pole? Yes, they do! Hey, that works. quite a bit better. Okay, so what I want to figure out here is coming from my generators, I want to feed directly to these batteries and then go through a transformer and then have a buffer battery on the back side of that. And then that runs to everything that is being used off of this very large heavy watt wire. So what I got to figure out is how to jump the power from over here across this kind of like center line where I have all of my wire running up and down. I'm gonna figure that out. Here we go. This will work. I mean, it's not the cleanest solution, but I'm okay with it. The power will run down here. It'll also power up this cold generator, or maybe I'll swap this equipment around a little bit, but for right now I think it's just fine. Power will then kind of jump down across this and back over and up, and then it'll run the whole battery bank over here. I think I can get rid of this. Stuff's happening, okay? But it's gonna work. Well, I don't know what this report does for me, because today was like 1,000 seconds of travel time, 1,200 the day before. I don't know. It depends on what tasks they have assigned to them. I mean, obviously they're running around a lot. So I guess you kind of got to look at just where they're moving and whether or not that's efficient or not. I mean, there isn't a much different way of looking at that. Now, if this ladder continued all the way up, then that's one avenue that they could just run continuously. Or maybe if that ladder just ran all the way right down here, but it kind of hits a wheeze wart, so you can't always win. One of the other things we talked about a little bit here was thermal shift plates inside of this area. So if we look at the temperature, it's really not bad inside of there. Look at that, 32 degrees Celsius. Perfect. I like that little system. I mean, it works, and it works well. But I want to see what a thermal shift plate actually does inside of there. So I have some leftover tungsten. I can go ahead and just drop that in there. This might make it look a little bit more fancy too. Whoa, how much does that cost? I think the other one was made of rock. Holy moly, that stuff's expensive. So that one over here is made of rock, even though I can't even select it. The other thing I did down here to kind of optimize this and keep it from dropping liquid all over the place is I put a second clock sensor in here, but I ran this from like 49 or I guess 48. Should be 48 to 49. And then this one is set from 99 to 100. So at the end of the day, we drop all the plastic to the bottom, and that'll also drop a little bit of liquid. So then the pump takes care of that liquid. And then in the middle of the day, we drop that plastic down, and you can see how much plastic we have there. So that's how the system works without flooding the base anymore. Good. The duck here brings up an interesting idea as far as what he was talking about, having two different cooling pods so that the hot liquid flows into a different chamber and then the cool liquid kind of flows out when it's ready. It would take a little bit more to set up, but imagine you had two separate chambers, one for cooling, basically two identical things. So one, once you reach a certain temperature, right, you drop your hot liquid in here, that liquid reaches the temperature and then goes into a standby mode. Now I've thought about doing that. It would take a little bit more to actually build, but I think that would be a cool thing to do at some point. And where I think that's really going to be effective is when we go to expand the farm system beyond, just this little like mealwood stuff. That way you can either warm up liquid or cool down liquid to a very tight temperature tolerance and then pump that into kind of your farm to just keep that level absolutely perfect. And then it doesn't really matter like what happens inside of that farm because you can always just bring in a little bit more of that liquid so you can get that temperature just right. Now liquid's easy to do that. You can also do the same thing with gas as well. But I'd like to explore a system that does that exact thing at some point. The other thing, like we mentioned already before, is that having more hydrogen inside of here, makes this more efficient already because the wheeze warts can affect more gas. And I think there's a limit to just how much gas there really is. And you can see how much hydrogen is really next to that wheeze wart right now, which is down here at the base of it. It's 1 kilogram, but above it it's 2.5, so it's working. I think the other thing is that we can see that it's flowing maybe a little bit quicker now, and you can see the temperature here is continuing to drop. I don't know if that's just simply because there isn't a lot of heat that's being built into the system at this point, but, you know, or shall we say being pumped into the system. But at the same time, we can also see that I think this is going to be a little bit more effective than it was beforehand, and we're not seeing the big difference between the liquid and everything else. But then again, we haven't run this for a little while, so let's go ahead and crank the priority up on that, and then try to get those thermal shift plates inside of here. Finally working. Come on now. There we go. I've got the wires to the point where they're filling up these batteries over here, so that's good. Means I can get rid of a lot of this stuff. No, I can't. Stay there. I do have to get rid of this one. Oh boy. And I don't need these batteries anymore. They are pointless. Okay, so what I can see here is that the system is working. This battery down here, which is kind of the buffer, that one's filling up, and then once I get beyond that, the rest of these will fill up as well. Oh no! I don't have enough plastic. I can't finish my giant plastic ladder here. So, we need to re-enable this and increase that plastic production again. Have I done the thermal shift plates yet? Oh, come on. Alright, so it's time to put in the battery sensor. Now, going back to my previous video, I took this little image, and this is the one that works off of air. However, there was also another comment down here on that video that was talking about using liquid, and you can see a picture of how he was doing that right there. So this is a very simple idea, right? So the pump turns on, and then it drips. So wherever that pump is, right? So here's the pump. As long as it has a little bit of power, it'll drip onto this little hydro sensor, you know. And if it doesn't do that, then, well, it doesn't turn on, so therefore you activate another pump or whatever, or another generator. So that's the way he was doing right there. You can do this either with a liquid, or you can also do this with gas. I'm going to go with the gas method because, you know, that's what this base is about. You're recreating the experiments, but in an actual base. So that's what this is right here. I just took a little snippet of that, and we can see the automation flow right there so that I can make sure that is going to happen. This oil refinery seems to have a problem. Even though it's on priority level number 1, it still runs all day long. And Frankenmeep's job has anything to do with oil refinery. He only has one job, and that's to build, but he's stuck on this thing all day long. So it's like the new hydro fan. I don't know. We used to have that problem where Bubbles would just sit on the hydro fan all day long, and I don't know. Hopefully that'll get fixed here in the next update. Stop it. Stop running this thing. Okay, so one way I could potentially simplify the liquid cooling over here, at least with what Titus Martin is talking about, I believe, is that I could more or less just get rid of this liquid shutoff and just let this be open so that it just kind of flows and continues to cool, and only use the thermal sensors to turn these polymer presses off if it gets too hot. I could do that. I suppose the one advantage of using these thermal sensors to actually control this liquid shutoff valve is that when it doesn't need to be cooled anymore, the system shuts off. So I kind of shut off this pump here from running into this area. So it stops the amount of cooling that's going on. It seems like I'm still getting a little water out of the bottom though. I mean, this pump doesn't really pick up in both locations. I might just want to swap it for the bigger pump. Alright, so what I want to make sure I now have is nothing but, in this case, natural gas in this area. And it looks like that's what I have. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I cap this off, and that will seal that system now. Okay, sweet. So now that is all sealed up. I could just say 15 on this. I want to make sure that that is 1 second so that it doesn't run very long. Doesn't want to, so we don't consume too much power, but 30 seconds on this. And really what I want to do is turn this off for a little bit so I know where the system balances out. So it looks like it's 969 grams. So if I make that 970, if that is above, then it will be on. And that buffer gate is going to be set for a little bit longer than the filter gate. So that'll be like 35 seconds. And then I'll turn the monitoring system on. And that will run the rest of these generators if needed. So what this also means is that I can enable the rest of these fertilizer synthesizers, because at this point I can store the amount of natural gas I have. However, what I don't have going on here is this isn't really separated, you know, thermal, in such a way that the natural gas cannot flow out. So what I should really do is use some naphtha over here and just really seal this area off completely. See what I tell you, Franken Meep's job, all he's got to do, he's got one job, and that's to build. What's the one thing he won't do? Build, because he's stuck on the oil refinery. Come on, man. Alright, so there we go. Everything is up and running and it's working well. I think the one thing I did notice is that if I have a coal generator hooked up to this, it will trickle power into the entire system, therefore never really completely draining these batteries. It's like there's a little bit of voltage in the line that could find its way over to this mini gas pump, confusing it a little bit. So really I don't need this coal generator here at all, as long as the system is up and running and I have natural gas available. So right now that's just going to remain there. It's going to remain disabled. So that's like a little emergency backup. The larger pump up here made a big difference. I'm not able to tell you really what happened with the thermal shift plates because I simply don't have enough metal at this point in order to make the rest of the shift plates work and, you know, give it a good full test. But I can tell you right now, I don't know. We'll have to see next time though. But I think this was a pretty successful little episode here, and I'm glad to have this thing up and running. That's going to provide me with a lot of power and flexibility for a lot of the equipment that goes on down here, and potentially feed that up into systems above it as well. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this little episode of Oxygen Not Included. Have a great week, and if I've earned your subscription, then thank you so much for that. I'll see you again next time. Stay awesome, guys. Peace. Brothgar out.